This is the Pandemic Proof Singer Series. I'm Danielle Tucker, your host. I'm a singer, a vocal coach, and one of the lead singers for the Mighty Untouchables band. I'm also the recent producer and host of the Pandemic Proof Singer Summit. This live stream is about singers for singers, just talking about moving forward in the midst of everything that's going on. It's really about community and lifting one another up, inspiring each other, and just talking about the hard things that we're doing. Tonight, I have a really great guest. She and I are meeting for the first time tonight. I have Chloe Liu. She sings original rock and roll licks with a healthy repertoire of classic covers. Chloe's blend of soulful style and timeless themes make for songs that are sonically familiar but powerfully original. After releasing her first album in 2019 with her band, the Liddells, and winning Best Pop Album at the San Diego Music Awards in 2020, she is working on releasing a new single. So I'm going to bring her right on. Hello.
Hello.
I realized I made a fatal error before we went on here. I didn't ask you to help me with the pronunciation of the names of your band.
Oh, you got it all. Yeah, Chloe Liu
Okay,
and
I hope I
Liddells.
got that right. That is one of my things that just like strikes fear in my heart all the time, because working in like a, corporate band and, playing weddings and things like that, you've got to announce couples, people in the wedding party and everything. And I'm always super detailed about trying to get the, correct pronunciations. And
Yeah.
one time we're doing this wedding, right? And I failed to do that because I had looked at the list and I thought, okay, I got this. I know all their common names, right? So I get up to introduce the father and I introduce him as Julio. And everybody in the crowd is like, it's Julio.
Oh.
I can't tell if they're angry with me or they're laughing or whatever. And like, of all the names, we are in Southern California. Come on. It's the one time it's going to be Julio.
It's the one time it's Jesus instead of Jesus,
Exactly.
or Julio instead of Julio.
Right.
Dang it.
Exactly my luck. But anyway, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really great to have you and to meet
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to talk all about your album, which I've been listening to all day, and it's amazing. But first, why don't you tell us kind of what you had going on pre-pandemic and kind of what, if anything, came to a screeching halt for you, and what are some of the things that you've kind of transitioned into?
Well, I was working 4 jobs, but my main one was as a musician. I was usually playing 2 to 3 times a week, just at bars and doing the regular thing. I did a couple like belly up shows and stuff like that too, but mainly just my regular. I had a lot of residencies at different restaurants and stuff all over the county. And of course, when everything shut down, that all immediately stopped. And it's kind of funny to think about now because I was actually on a 10-day vacation, and it was the first vacation I had decided and been able to take in years because my sister was having a baby. And I was freaking out because I was like, oh, I had to skip. It was right before the San Diego Music Awards were supposed to be happening. And I had been asked to do a bunch of showcases for that. And I had to turn them all down because I was going to be out of town. And a lot of them ended up being canceled anyway. But
did the vacation happen though?
Sort of. No. I mean, I was in San Francisco. My sister her baby had not come yet, and all of a sudden that Saturday, I feel like I had started getting a lot of cancellations, and I was like, oh no, because when I was coming back, I was flying in, and then that same morning I had a gig, and then I had another gig in the afternoon, and I had another gig that night. So I was like planning on all these back-to-back gigs when I got back, and they were all being canceled, and I was like, how am I going to pay my bills next month? Like, I just moved in with Lauren. And I was like, fine. I was like, I'm doing it. I'm making it. Most of my money was coming from gigging. I was also a bartender, which stopped too, and a sound person, which stopped as well.
All the
So,
wrong things you were.
yeah. But yeah, so that all just it was overnight, like everybody pretty much. And I flew back early from San Francisco because my sister. I mean, I wasn't going to be able to be in the hospital room with her at that point, and that was why I was there. And I was just freaking out about financials, and I mean, as a semi-adult, I live paycheck to paycheck still, and or was and am still, and so it was a little scary. Sorry, the dog is eating in the background, and like those little crunching noises. But yeah, so I was a gigging musician and working very regularly, and yeah, I didn't really know what to do at first, and it's honestly taken me until about now to really figure that out.
Yeah.
In September, I'm also an artist, and so I started taking commissions for pet portraits, which kind of took off, and I was able to like supplement um, everything with those commissions, which has been actually really eye-opening to realize that like, okay, I can do this. Like I'm still good at doing something. There was definitely a good 6-month period of like, what do I do with my life now? Like I had just figured it out. Now I've got to figure it all out again.
Yes.
So
Oh, I feel you, but
yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of us are like that, where it's like we needed like 10 months of shock before we really got anything in gear. For some of us, it takes a while for things to sink in. So
Yeah. I kept thinking, well, it'll be over like next month, so it'll be fine. Like I'll be fine.
yep, it's all gonna be good.
Yeah.
It is all gonna be good. It kind of, I don't know, do you feel like we're kind of slowly ramping up and we're headed towards the light? Are you
I
feeling that?
I do. I definitely don't feel like the regular gigging is gonna come back the way it was for a while. That's
Mhm.
what scares me is that like the places that I played regularly are no longer what they were, and or they're gone. Like Bar
Mm.
Pink is gone, and I was working as a sound person there, and I was playing there usually about once a month. So that
Mhm.
was hard to come to terms with. Definitely never thought that I would cry over a bar closing as much as I did. And I
Yeah.
did because they became my family last year. And so it was, well, in 2019. I keep completely skipping over 2020 when I talk about last year. I'm like, oh, last year,
It's pretty much a loss
2019.
anyway, so
Yeah. But
yeah.
yeah, it's been a weird, yeah, it's still weird to come to terms with. It's weird to talk about because I haven't really talked about it much.
Yeah, it
I
truly
feel
is.
like,
Well, so with the bad, there was definitely some really, really good. You had your debut album come out, and it won Best Pop Album at the San
yeah,
Diego Music Awards, so that is a pretty good debut, I would say.
yeah, it was surprising. I was surprised.
Aw.
It was
Well, tell me
definitely.
all about it. Who's on the album? How did it come to be? What was the writing process and everything?
So I write mainly with a guy named Chris Davies, and he's a pretty prominent San Diego guitarist. He's one of those guys that is under the radar and is on a lot of people's albums, but a lot of people don't realize it. He works a lot with Al Howard's project that he's doing right now, and he was in the band The Penetrators, big San Diego punk band in the early 80s.
Mhm.
Um, but he and I started playing together like 5 years ago ish. We were in a band called, well, we're still in it. We just haven't played in a year. The Flophouse Playboys with Chris Sullivan from the Farmers.
Mm.
And I I had been offered a duo gig on Sunday afternoons where it was just going to be like an acoustic style thing. And I had never done that before. And so I asked Davies to do that with me, and in practicing our covers that we were doing, because I was always just doing cover bands as a hobby, and working full-time jobs. I was a HR administrator for a long time. But he asked me if I had any original music, and I was like, well, I like kind of write songs. And so he helped me finish some songs that I had written when I was in my early 20s. And I mean, I was still kind of in my early 20s then. But he and I wrote, we wrote the last song on the album, or on the EP, The Story Is Over. And that was the first song we wrote together. And then over the course of 2 or 3 years, I had gotten married and kind of stopped doing so much music stuff. And that's a whole horrible thing that doesn't need to be gone into. But the product of that was the EP. I went through a really, it was kind of well, it wasn't kind of, it was a very abusive relationship. And like a lot of people, you don't realize it's as bad as it is until you're out of it, or until you write songs about it while you think you're happily married. And then that's the other part that's been interesting to go back over lyrics that I wrote while I was happily married. And so yeah, after I split with my ex-husband, I moved back in with my grandparents, and I wrote a lot of songs. And Davies helped me finish those out. And then after years of kind of being holed up in the middle of I had moved out to Crest and been isolated from my family and my friends, and hadn't been performing as much. I was just doing my regular once a month gig with a cover band that I'm no longer in. I started to go out and sing with other bands, and I started singing with Davies' other band called the Ron and the Reapers, and that's with Ron Silva, and he's an awesome singer. He was in a bunch of bands. The Nashville Ramblers was one of his bigger bands that kind of made it. And so he invited me to start singing with them, and so I started going and playing music with that band, and in doing that, got connected with all of those people in that band, which were Dave Fleminger. He's a keyboardist in San Diego who plays with Alvino and the Dwells, and quite a few other bands, the Amandas, and Richard Larson is the drummer on that album, and he's amazing. I love him. Every time, like, I love so many drummers in San Diego, but there's just something about his energy on stage. Like, a live performance with T-Bone is like, it's like no other. And Pete Meisner, who was also, he was in, oh God, I'm like blanking on all of their bands, but Pete Meisner, Dave Fleminger, Chris Davies, Ron Silva, and Richard Larson. And that's it, right? Keyboards, 2 guitars, bass, drums. Yeah. Yeah. So they all started to chime in on the songs. And so it's kind of cool. Like, I love the process of seeing how a song goes from, like, it's okay, and then some other people join in, and you're like, oh, this is a great song now. So yeah, so it's that's who's on that album, and definitely a learning experience, that recording, because that was the first time I'd ever recorded in a professional studio. And we just did it live on an 8-track live in studio, and Dean Reese recorded it, and then Fleminger mastered and mixed and mastered it. So Yeah.
It's amazing. And before I forget, I'm going to post your socials in the comments so everybody can check out the album. I really loved it. Were you performing with this group as a band live prior to doing the album, or was the band pulled together specifically to create the album?
No, I was performing with that band prior to the album.
Hmm.
We played mainly as Ron and the Reapers, and so we'd do cover band show, cover 3-hour cover gigs at bars and stuff.
Hmm.
And then every once in a while, we'd throw in some originals. We did play we played for about a year before we released the EP.
Hmm.
So we formed in 2018. And we played one gig as Chloe Lou and the Something Something and then changed that name off. It was too confusing for people.
Oh.
But
So, well, tell me about the process of the San Diego Music Awards. So the album comes out. What was, how were you building hype about it? How were you promoting it? I'm not familiar with process with the awards. Even, we've had a lot of the award winners come on and talk about it, but I'm really curious to kind of know what the behind the scenes process is with that and everything you went through.
well, honestly, I'm really bad at promoting myself. I'm getting better. I'm trying to be better. And I just started a Patreon, so I'm kind of forced to do it on a regular basis now, which
Right.
has been actually really good for me because I needed that kind of structure a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, so it was released the day of Art Around Adams, and we played at Art Around Adams, and I tried to coincide things with that. I never actually planned an album release show. We did kind of soft release show
Mhm.
at Bar Pink one night with the Downs family. Um, but yeah, I didn't quite promote it as much as I probably should have. And I passed the CD on to Liz Abbott at the Troubadour. And then Frank Kocher wrote a really nice review about the album. And that was 2019. So yeah, it was because I released it summer of 2019. It was June. And I don't know, it's just exciting to see my name on Spotify too. So that was a whole other thing. Um, but other than that, to be honest, I sent it to the San Diego Music Awards and then found out I was nominated a couple months later, and then that was pretty much it, to be honest. And then they reached out a few times about the showcases for nominees,
Mhm.
but I had to pass up on those. And
Mhm.
then everything shut down anyway, and they didn't even have the awards. So
Yeah, yeah.
um,
But I saw on social media, I saw your the viewing party that you had, so you celebrated,
the
right?
viewing party. Oh yeah, yeah, with Lauren and yeah, yeah, where we just hung out and I got dressed up. I wore the dress that I bought for. Actually, that wasn't even the dress I bought for that. To be honest, I bought that dress to wear for a belly up show because I was a featured performer for the Beat Farmers Hootenanny that
Mhm.
in January of last year, and I was singing a song called Goldmine that Buddy Blue used to sing. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to wear this velvet gold dress. And then last minute chickened out because I don't know. It was tight. It was a form fitting dress. It wasn't like a fit and flare like I normally wear. So,
Yeah.
but I got to wear it at home with Lauren.
Nice, nice.
So it's fine.
Well, things all seem to turn out with the album anyways, despite any, perceived lack of promoting it. It just kind of naturally unfolded that way, but it really is a great album. It's really well done. So,
Thank you.
so are you planning a follow-up anytime
Yeah.
soon?
Yeah, okay, so that was what kind of derailed last year was I had started to we had a list of songs we were going to I had a list of songs for the band that we were going to start recording, and had kind of a wishy-washy plan of releasing a single like every couple months. Like I was like, oh, I'll release a single in June and then I'll release another one. Like because June kind of corresponded. I was supposed to be on the cover of the Troubadour in June and then performing at their annual fundraiser at Tio Leo's, but that got canceled and then my cover story got pushed back. And so I had a plan for some recording and it still hasn't happened, but I've started to write again with Davies recently. So there's that a bit. I pulled out my piano and have been faking my way through writing.
Yeah.
Again, that's what I'd call it anyway.
Yeah. So do you think you will kind of continue working on it this way, or do you feel like you're kind of waiting for things to evolve to a certain, like, I don't know, pace of life again, or are you just kind of taking it at your own pace?
I'm kind of taking it at my own pace. To be honest, I struggle a lot with depression and I go through really excited phases of like, I'm going to get this done. We're going to do this. We're finally going to release these songs. And then it'll fall by the wayside for a month or two. And I'm trying to push through that. And I've been in a better place lately. So it's definitely, I've taken a lot more steps in the last couple weeks than I have probably in the entire year to start getting in the studio. My partner is actually a sound engineer, so I really have no excuse for not getting into the studio because I have access to 3 different studios. So it's me that is just going at my own pace at this point. But I'm hopeful that in the next couple weeks that I can at least get a little bit of professional stuff finished. And if not, that's okay because gotta take it as it is.
I think I've talked to so many people and there's like this guilt and shame around, not having like, put a new album together or been writing prolifically, throughout all of this. But I really think that, taking it at your own pace, especially when it comes to art and being original and being creative, you just kind of have to do most of it when the mood strikes. I mean, I know that you do have to kind of, jump in there and get the ball rolling with things, but your best work is going to come when it comes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and that's definitely been my philosophy in life. Usually, I think there was definitely a pressure after like the announcement of the winners that I was like, oh no, I should have had this ready and had something out so that if people enjoyed that, they could go to my next thing. And I have a backlog of songs. Like, it's not like we don't have anything to record. We've got probably an album and a half's worth, a full-length album and a half's worth. And it's just I definitely go through a lot of self-doubt too. So there's a lot of that fight back of constantly being like, well, I don't know, this isn't good enough now, or like, I don't know. But that's always, I think everybody goes through that, and it's definitely more present this year. And I think partially I maybe am holding back because I'm waiting for things to be in a place that's more comfortable or more, I don't know. I'm not really sure because a part of me is like, it should be easier because I don't have the pressure of having to go and perform them a bunch of times.
It makes sense though, because the way things were, we're in our musical community. We have our peers, our friends and everything. And we're kind of, that builds momentum. It builds momentum to get projects done because, you're going to be seeing certain people who are expecting certain things from you, who are excited about things, who want to get involved in it. But, nowadays we're just so much more isolated than we normally are. So we're just kind of left to, think about these things, without so much of the social support. But
Yeah.
it'll come when it comes. I
Yeah.
really think that probably in the coming years, some pretty amazing stuff is going to come out, just because this has been, or last year was, a pretty good year for material. So
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, the amount of I don't know if I think Lauren is who told me that there were like 400 and something submissions for the San Diego Music Awards this year, which is like
wow.
way more than usual. I
Wow.
don't think that there's usually that many.
Yeah.
So that's exciting because that'll be, I mean, it's exciting that everybody's taking this time to write and stuff too.
Mhm.
I did some writing, I just didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's coming.
Yeah.
Well, let's walk back then, and kind of talk a little bit about your history and your musical journey. And did you grow up in a musical family? And what was your trajectory into singing?
Um, I would say that my family's semi-musical. My grandpa loved to sing, and he was a really powerful singer.
Mhm.
Um, and my dad is a very supportive fan, and he was very good friends with all the guys from the Beat Farmers, and so I grew up with a lot of musicians around me.
Yeah.
So I got exposed to a lot of that, but I definitely didn't come out of my I sang a lot in elementary school. I did the talent shows, and in middle school I did a couple talent shows, but I did a choir in 5th grade, and then it wasn't until late middle school that I did some musical theater and kind of tried that out for a little bit. I played in the orchestra and oops, sorry, I hit the microphone. Played in the orchestra and did art mostly. And it wasn't until after high school that I started to get more confident, I guess, to get out there. I had moved back in with my dad, and he is very encouraging, and was just put the bug in my brain of, hey, you sing all the time, you should do something with that. um, and so I joined what I thought was the Grossmont Jazz Vocal Ensemble.
Okay.
And then I showed up and everybody had instruments, and I was like, I'm in the wrong place. And Paul Kirikawa was the band leader at the time. I don't know if he still is. And he was like, well, are you a singer? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like thinking to myself, but I can't read sheet music, and I know that's what they're gonna need. But I faked my way through it because apparently he had no idea that I couldn't read sheet music.
Nice.
I just found versions of songs because I didn't know how to read sheet music, and I still don't. I mean, I guess I can fake my way through it. I can read it once I figure out where I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't until I took music theory with him the next semester that he was like, well, you can read sheet music though. Why are you in this class? And I was like, I can't. I don't know anything. But that's how I also found out that I had a good ear, and that I know when something's wrong, and I'm definitely still learning as time goes on. But yeah, I kind of went from there. Someone in that jazz ensemble asked me to join a disco band, and I tried it, and then I got an opportunity through Craigslist to join a band that was already gigging, and they had a lot of weddings on the books, and I had never been paid to sing, so I was just like, oh, I can get paid to sing for
Wow.
3 hours. So it was like a whole new thing. I was like 20, 21 around that time. And then I just did that cover band for longer than I probably should have. I love them to death, but I I yeah, I stayed in that cover band until a couple of years ago. And yeah, it just kind of things, I guess, kind of snowballed in a way because I was just doing the cover band, and then every once in a while I would do some little one-off project. I had joined a band, um, an original band that I ended up just realizing it wasn't for me because they did kind of a no doubt kind of thing and wanted more of a like eye candy singer than I think I was presenting for them. I guess I don't know. I'm a bigger lady, and I'm also like I don't. I'm not. I dress up. I dress up very nicely, and I enjoy glamour and glitz. But that's not for everybody. Some people want to, the hot girl or the typical hot girl. I think
Yeah.
I'm hot, but
You are hot. Yes.
but that was kind of my first insight into the oh, people my age are looking for somebody to look at in a lot of the time, which
Mhm.
isn't the case. I think it was that moment in my life of like, okay, so this is maybe not for me, or I don't know. I just had a couple bad instances of I don't know those asshole band leaders that
Yeah.
were like, oh, you would be so great. Like, you would be like hard to stop. You would be unstoppable if you just lost some weight. And I'd be like,
Oh, Lord Jesus.
okay, then this isn't the band for me.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, I don't know where all of that was going. I guess just the snowballing of like,
Mhm.
I was in this cover band that did, corporate type corporate type gigs, I would
Mhm.
say, because we kind of lost it after a little while. We lost our manager, and then after that it just kind of became a bar gig once a month kind of thing. And I just kept staying with them because I wasn't doing anything else. And then when I started working with Davies was kind of when everything kind of took off. I wouldn't say took off. It took a couple years to get comfortable
Yeah.
singing my original stuff, but now, yeah, I had gone from not ever. It was always just a hobby to having it be my main job, which was
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah,
I love to hear these stories of how these things unfold. So you've been in a lot of bands, it sounds like. I'm curious to know prior to working in a band, what were your musical influences then? And then as you worked through these bands, were you being, influenced by them, especially if there was, anything original in nature? And then what were you listening to when you were creating your album?
okay,
It's a
so
three-step question.
it's kind of a weird. So my dad is very. He likes all the really weird stuff,
Okay.
like Captain Beefheart, and like he was very and well, not was or is, because he's not. He likes pop music too. He likes the Beatles and he likes Pink Floyd. But he was also very like into the weird underground stuff, and then I would do impersonations of Mark Bolan from T-Rex all the time as like a middle schooler. I'd do the like, you're gonna look fine, and do all these weird things with my voice, and would just try to copy people that
Uh-huh.
I thought sounded cool and different. Um, and then when I joined the cover band, I realized I had never really listened to top 40s music in my whole life.
Oh, okay.
I had listened to country, like the popular country, because my aunt and uncle that I would stay with a lot, they were the KSON was always on, and Trisha Yearwood was the first album I ever bought. I was in second grade. I remember picking it out and my dad being like, "Are you sure?" And because he was not into pop country. But then he would introduce me to older like I was in second grade listening to Patsy Cline, and so he would introduce me to, like, he'd be like, "Oh, you like that? Well, you might like this better, and this is what I think is the better version of that." So, like, I asked for the Bewitched album. That there was that band that was like B star Witched, and it was a 4-person Irish 4-girl band when I was in like second or third grade.
Okay.
And I asked for this album for Christmas, and my dad got me the Coors album instead, because he was like, if you're going to listen to some Irish ladies singing and playing instruments, you should listen to the real stuff, not the pop stuff.
I like your dad.
Yeah, no, he was very, I do too.
He sounds fun.
And I was always really eclectic because I would listen to what was popular, like on the radio as a kid, and then I'd come home and my dad would be playing old jazz stuff and Ella Fitzgerald and the Louis Prima, Keely Smith stuff. So it was always a different thing with my dad. And then as I learned the top 40s stuff, I mean, that was the first time I'd listened to the Eagles. Like, I had never listened to stuff that most people grow up with, and I didn't realize that that was stuff most people grew up with, and I was like, "I've never heard this song before," and they're like, "You've never heard this song?" I'm like, "I'm sorry." I remember being, like, 19 and hanging out with a group of friends, and someone put on Fleetwood Mac, and I was like, "Who is this?"
These guys are good.
Yeah. And then I got on a whole Fleetwood Mac kick. It was the same thing. My best friend Michaela, she introduced me to Heart. I had never listened to Heart before, and it's just so funny to think of now. But I also got to listen to all of these weird. I keep using the word weird, but it's not weird. It's just it wasn't the stuff that all my friends' parents were listening to. I got a whole different perspective on the music life too, because he was friends with these guys that had kind of almost made it, the Beat Farmers, they made it. They were on Letterman,
Right.
And so I thought my dad was friends with every famous person because of that. So I remember asking my dad one day if he was friends with Peter Gabriel, because he had a poster of Peter Gabriel on his wall, just weird perceptions of your parents as godlike figures.
Yeah. That's funny.
But yeah, as I started to do more cover band stuff, I dove into different music that I hadn't considered listening to, only because I didn't really have it and nobody ever played it for me. So it wasn't like, it was always the assumption that I knew it already because they knew it. And so yeah, so then
Did you like the pop top 40 stuff?
yeah, yes and no.
Okay.
It depends. Yeah. It
It's pretty
depends.
broad genre.
I will say, and I hate the perception of people who say this, but I do like most kinds of music, like every kind. I would say every kind, because I still listen to death metal. Like I will listen to the screamy, yelly emo music that I listened to in high school. Like I'm into it.
Yeah. I could totally relate to that. I mean, I think I have a mood for every style of music. If it suits my mood at the moment, I like it.
Yeah. I love a twangy country day. Like, sometimes, I mean, my playlists on Spotify will go from a rap song to a Dixie Chicks song to the Chicks, to, like some song from a musical. Like, it's very all over the place. I definitely started to get a lot more influenced by Motown and like 60s soul and 60s in general. I just kind of dove into that place of music for a while, mainly because I was learning a lot of stuff for Ron and the Reapers, which is their main repertoire is 60s rock and pop,
Mhm.
and soul. And yeah, so I was listening to a lot of that stuff when I wrote. Well, I wouldn't say that though, because at the time too, I was listening to a lot of old country and um yeah, I kind of I mean, I switch around from so many things. I'm trying to go back to that point in life. I definitely know that the Beyonce Lemonade album was like a huge part of
Mm.
my day to day. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
listening to that over and over again.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I do remember being very, yeah, I mean, I was just listening to a lot of like um, Shangri-La's and 60s girl groups, um, and got really into that for a little while too. But I'm weirdly, I that point of time too, when I wrote a lot of those songs on that album, I know, well, I can just say castles and shipwrecks, and I'd say the second song that I've switched the name around so many times I can't even remember the name of my own song. But the second song on that EP, those were all I wrote all of those in a time of my life that I kind of block out. So
Mhm.
I don't really remember what I was listening to music wise in a
Mhm.
weird ways of, and
Yeah.
I wish I could, like, I'm realizing that as we're talking. I'm like, "Oh, I think I've blocked out a lot of my oops, sorry. A
Mhm.
lot of the time, a lot of that area of my
Yeah.
life."
That
Um,
makes so much sense though, because I mean, the music that's like trending with us at any given point, it kind of serves as a milestone down, or a marker down the road where you listen to something that you haven't listened to in a long time. It takes you right back to that place. And obviously, if it's a place you're not fond of, why
yeah.
would you want to go back and recount that? So I totally get that.
Yeah, and that album kind of became too, like, this therapeutic, like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I lived that, and now I've recorded it, and now I don't wanna touch those songs anymore." Like, I we don't even
Oh yeah.
perform even last the beginning of last year when we were playing gigs, we did a Casbah show. Like, this is probably my more memorable original band gig, was opening for, the Midnight Pine and Bertie Bardot at the Casbah, and I think we only played Shipwrecks off of that album. Oh, no, we probably played The Story Is Over as well.
Mhm.
But, yeah, we kinda stopped playing some of those songs, especially the first one, Play the Game. It kind of has mixed reactions. It's kind of one of those weird ones of, like, it when we play it live, it's a really powerful song,
Mhm.
but I feel like we have to play it first because it doesn't make sense in a set because it's just such a long, or well, in live, we do it a lot longer than the album version.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
So if you're not doing the album songs, are you generally doing covers?
oh, no, no, I have a bunch of other original
Okay.
music, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I wrote a lot of songs, over the course of, 2019, 2020. No,
Yeah.
2018, 2019. I think I keep skipping 2020. 2020, that whole 10 months of um,
Right.
but yeah, we play a lot of, the only, when we do original gigs, we try to keep covers out of it,
Mm,
except for a lot of the time we'll play White Rabbit because that's the fun one.
yeah.
And it goes with the set.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, so if you do you have originals that you were playing or, would currently be playing in your set that you'd want to carry over into an album? Is there material you have that you want to record?
Oh yeah, I have probably an album, a full-length album's worth
Wow.
of songs. Um, we're working on, I have a list of 3 songs right now that we're going a little more into because I definitely had gotten burnt out on how many I was gigging a lot, and I wasn't really enjoying performing as much as I want to admit. I don't really want to admit that I was starting to hate it. I was starting to get a little burnt out on performing every couple days or every night for a couple of weeks. And so I had been a little bit lazy with my songwriting, and we've been revisiting a couple of those songs, and I've gone back and been working on some lyrics because there were just some inconsistencies in some of the newer songs. But yeah, we've got a good chunk of songs that I've done some home recording and sent off to Davies to do some basic start tracks for the rest of the band so that we can get into the studio and start recording. So there's a bunch. there's a song that I actually just wrote a couple weeks ago that I'm really feeling, and I definitely am excited to. I am actually going to share a little behind the scenes with my Patreon supporters in the next couple weeks of how that song's being written, because I just kind of jammed it out on the piano and sang it and then sent it to Davies, and he sent me back a guitar and drums and bass on it, and it sounded great. And so I'm excited to re-record my vocals and piano parts and possibly have a weird little random single out, maybe. Who knows?
Seems like that's how everybody's doing it nowadays anyways, but
Yeah.
that's a good position to be in, to have enough material to put together a full album.
Yeah, that's definitely, I definitely got sidetracked for a while not getting that stuff out. And I mean, even with the release of the EP, by the time we released that EP, we already had that full length amount of original stuff to deal with. But it'll be good to be able to pick and choose too. Because I think that's the other part of it that I struggle with as a songwriter, is deciding that a song just isn't worth continuing with. Like, they're my babies, they're my therapy, But now, especially with that album, with the EP, like those songs, I mean, I released them into the universe, and I felt them, and now it's time to put those to bed and go on to some new stuff. And I don't know, there's definitely. Yeah.
I was thinking about that while you were, talking about the album. I hope this isn't too weird of a question, but when you've put together an album and it's kind of, it's sealed, it is what it is, it's kind of going to be that way forever. I'm sorry, my eye has decided it's going to cry this entire time. Forgive me. But do you go back and listen to your own stuff? Do you like listening to your own stuff? Or do you hear it and be like, oh my God, next time I record, it's going to sound nothing like this? Or do you love it?
I have a hard time even listening to my own voice. Like, I can't even, it's really hard, but I know that I need to do it a lot of the time, especially like going back over performances. But when it comes to that album, there's definitely a lot of things I would have done differently, especially the way we recorded it. We did it all live in studio, so there was really no room to edit anything. And that's definitely my older music in my head. Like, I'm like, oh, that's my old stuff. But because I haven't released anything else, it's still my only thing to really talk about or like to have as an example. So part of me, I think, and I hate to say this out loud, but it's the truth, is that I think part of me doesn't really promote it a lot of the time too, because I'm like, I don't want people to hear this. Like it could have been so much better. And it's me. It's not my band at all. It's my like I hear tones and stuff and things that I wish that I had sung differently or that I had worked on the lyrics a little more. I mean, there's one song on there specifically that I listened back to and I'm like, why didn't I just clarify those words? But it was also not supposed to even be on that EP. It was supposed to be a 4-song EP. But that second song snuck its way in there because we were right in the process of writing it and we played it while we were in the studio and Dean ended up having us just record it so that we had it.
Nice.
Which is fine. But there's definitely it's really hard for me to listen back on my own stuff.
Yeah.
Even I mean like Lauren and I definitely she's really good at being like stop negative self-talking. Like you're talking negative about your own stuff and it's not okay. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I definitely struggle with a lot of my own self-confidence when it comes to songwriting. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, I can really, really relate to that because I think my struggle with songwriting is that I'm never satisfied with it. It's like something will be good-ish, but I think to myself as this is going along, I'm like, yeah, this is okay, but I would never listen to this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to make somebody else listen to it.
And that's yeah, I mean, that's definitely gotten I feel that way too much more than I
Yeah.
want to admit, but
So what are you listening to right now? What's your like everyday go-to stuff?
I have gotten really and this is gonna sound so weird, but there's this specific playlist on Spotify that their tag for it's called Pollen, and
Okay.
the tag for it is that it's genreless music, and it kind of is because it'll go from like there's definitely I can't even describe it. I've tried to talk to my to Davies about it and describe it to him because he's not on like he doesn't use Spotify at all.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I'll go through and I'll tell him about things. There's a band called Big Pig that I've been really digging lately.
Uh-huh.
Um, and oh gosh, I forgot her name. I just need to look really quick to see if I can find it. There's another singer that her stuff is described as hip hop grunge. Like
Okay.
it's really interesting. But that's what I listen to all day when I'm working on my art and jewelry making and stuff. Because that's kind of where I've pivoted as a creator, as I've gone from doing music to making stuff with my hands.
Mhm.
Um, but her name is oh my gosh, where's her name? Deb Never.
Deb Never. Okay.
Um, I really like her song, Someone Else. And then the other one that I've started to really get into is Arlo Parks. And she's got a really cool style. And I definitely listen to a lot of like St. Vincent. And let's see. Lucy Dacus, I really like her. A lot of like just the kind of angry girl music is like that's my love.
Yeah.
I really liked, yeah, I've been in Angel Olsen, that kind of, yeah, angry, but also sad. Lots of sad music.
Yeah. Moody stuff.
Yeah,
I like it. Very
yeah.
nice.
Moody
Oh.
that kind of crosses into hip hop a little bit too, which is kind of fun.
Oh.
But yeah.
Well, I'm definitely gonna check out that playlist because I'm like, I'm between moods right now. I'm having a big mood shift. So stuff that I've been listening to for like the past 6 months or something, I'm now at that point where I'm like, I'm not feeling this as much anymore. So
Sorry.
Something will hit eventually, but I'll
Oh,
check out Colin.
no.
That's all
Sorry.
I am going to again post your social media links in the comments. But you want to talk about, where you'd like to direct people to go to check out your music, and where should they be following you for future coming music?
So my general Instagram is probably the best place to find all of the different things that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Um, my which is just the underscore Chloe underscore Lou. Or my band's website, Chloe Lou and the Liddells.
Mhm.
I do need to update it a bit because it's still pre-pandemic-y. But I'm actually really trying to promote my Patreon right now,
Okay.
which is just patreon.com/Chloe Lou. I have 3 levels of tiers, and I release a monthly print. And it's an original piece of artwork that I get printed on really nice paper
Mhm.
uh, in like the archival inks. And that is hand mailed, and I write a little note to each subscriber at that level. But it also, my Patreon also has, well, it also will have a lot of behind the scenes stuff, unreleased live shows that I've done. I've been actually working on clipping up. I played at a place called Harvard and Stone in LA at the end of 2019,
Mhm.
and we got a really nice recording from their house recording. And so I've been clipping that up and getting ready to kind of release those as like little demo tracks that are just exclusive for the Patreon subscribers.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, my Patreon is my main thing right now, since I've been kind of focused more on art than
And
music
do you
lately.
display your artwork anywhere? I mean, is there anywhere online that people can check out?
Yeah,
Like, can you actually see it on Patreon?
it's on Art of Chloe Lou, my Instagram
Oh, okay.
page. And then I do sometimes post stuff on my personal Instagram as well.
Mhm.
Um, which actually I probably have more stuff on my personal Instagram at this point, since the Art of Chloe Lou one is pretty new.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Well, I encourage everyone to go back and listen to your album because I really liked it. I think it's great. And I think it gives everyone a flavor for what you do. It really is a great album. So,
Thanks.
and everybody needs to go and follow Chloe. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. It's so good to meet you
Thank you
and
for having
finally
me.
get to gab with you for a little bit. I totally wanted to go into what what are the behind the scenes of two incredibly talented people living together, and what
We
what
should
is
do a
that like?
duo one. Yeah.
So we'll have to do a part 2 here. Yeah, but thank you again. I'll look forward to hearing what you put out in the future, and definitely want to check out your artwork too.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for having me. I really appreciate it.
you are welcome. Yeah. Hey, Joe. Thank you. Thank you for watching. So thanks to everybody for checking this out tonight. This isn't, only for singers to view. I know it's really interesting to hear everybody's backstory, but if you are a singer and you are in a position where you're needing some support, a little encouragement, or a little direction, I have a Facebook group called the Pandemic Proof Singer Summit. Just look that up and ask to join, and we'll let you on in. It's a really cool community. And we'd love to have you. But I guess that's good night for now. Thank you so much, Chloe. Good to
Thank
meet you.
you. Nice to meet you too.
Take care. Good
You
night,
too.
everyone.